Hello, this is Ken. I like making things. I like making things out of paper, and I like making things cooler. Especially my figures. Sometimes figures don't look all that screen accurate. All they need is a bit of touch-up here and there to unleash their hidden potential. I also love using everyday tools and materials to recreate iconic scenes from my figures, so they can shine on my display. Subscribe to my channel and join my DIY adventure as I ask myself the same question every week. Can I make it? Last week, I worked on He Who Remains and made him look more lifelike. Check it out if you haven't already. I wanted the He Who Remains figure ever since Loki's finale, because the Citadel is such a cool location, and I wanted to make it as a display ever since. Around a year ago, I asked you which Loki display should I make with Loki and Sylvie, and the options were the elevator scene where it would be the most screen accurate, Lamentis 1, or the Citadel. I personally was rooting for Citadel, but the majority of you wanted Lamentis 1, which worked out perfectly because it wouldn't make sense for me to make the Citadel with the He Who Remains. But now it's finally time. So, can I make it? The most memorable part of the Citadel is the room with the circular windows. The easiest way to approach it is to make an L-shaped display with a wall and a floor. But that's too basic, so let me make it more 3D. I believe the area near the windows is slightly elevated. Next, I want to add more walls to the display, but I don't want it to look like a cube. So I'm going to make these walls slanted so they guide your attention towards the center, where the windows are. That still looks odd. Let me see if it will look more natural with a ceiling. But I have to be careful because I don't want to block the light too much and cast unnecessary shadows. I think this should work. I don't think the ceiling will cause issues if it only extends halfway. Bam! Okay, that actually looks pretty awesome. Let's print it out. Alright, here's everything printed. I'm gonna start with the floor. Cut, cut, cut. I had to divide it into multiple sections to get it to the size I want. Hiya! It is quite difficult to make out the actual pattern on the floor. I think I recreated something very similar. Here are the back pieces. These ones at the back are tapered so that the floor doesn't look too square. I want the floor to have the same shape as the structure. Alright, there we go. Let me do the walls next. Here's one side. And bam! Here's the other wall. Magic! Now onto the window area at the back. I watched the finale a few times and I believe at the back of the Citadel there are these narrow and tall windows on the walls and on the roof. It's hard to tell because the camera was pretty stationary in the finale, so only had a few frames of reference to look at, so I did my own interpretation of it. Okay, let's glue the walls together. It kinda looks like a hallway, but this next piece should be able to fix that. This is the elevated piece at the back of the room. Alright, I'm starting to see it. But before I put the main windows on, let me decorate the room a bit more first. I thought the walls were too plain, so I decided to add a few bookshelves. According to the reference in concept art, this room was full of bookshelves and artifacts. Adding these to my display would make it look more sophisticated. It would go with He Who Remains' know-it-all character very well. I'm gonna build 2 of these, and I'll place them in front of the blank walls at the front. I didn't want to make 2 rectangular boxes with books printed on the front. That'll look 2D and not that interesting. I want the bookshelves to look 3D and actually be functional. Is it really necessary? Nope. But I love 3D things. These are gonna look so cool. Hiya! There. All they need are the actual shelves. Be right back. Done. Now I just gotta fill them up with the books. Cut, cut, cut. And a few folds here and there, with a bit of glue. Ta-da! A book. Now I just gotta make a couple more. Okay, this is gonna take forever. I'm gonna cheat a bit. I made a couple of stacks of books, but they're just hollow boxes. They're more like decorative books. But if I place them strategically with the individual books, I can create a pretty realistic looking bookshelf. Look at that. That looks pretty convincing, eh? Alright, one last furniture before I do the windows. He who remains needs his desk. So a desk it is. I'm gonna keep this one simple. In the show, he who remains was sitting at his desk. But because of the rope he's wearing, it's impossible for me to do a sitting pose with my figure. That is why I decided to do the desk as one big block, so I can cover up his legs. It is also much easier to make it this way too. And finally, the windows. These are what makes the Citadel so iconic. I love the imagery of the sacred timeline showing through the windows. I have to include that. All I need to do is glue these two pieces together and attach it to the back of the display. But let me try and make it a bit more 3D by cutting out the actual windows. Okay, I'm almost done. Let me secure everything with glue. Oh, you know what? I realized the Citadel is a perfect set for me to display some of the random props and accessories from other Marvel Legends figures. Like Athena's dagger here. It's a very interesting looking weapon, but I won't display my Athena with this ever. And it looks perfect here aesthetically. Another item I have is a Tesseract. This Infinity Stone kickstarted the series, so it's kinda fitting for it to go here too. And Lady Sif's shield will look really good here as well. He who remains looks like someone who would collect ancient artifacts. And the last item I'm going to include is this random lamp that came with the Astro Strange figure. I transformed that figure into Sinister Strange. Check that out if you're interested. Oh wow, those shelves look amazing. Now the desk looks too empty. Luckily, I have a few books left, so let me place a couple on the desk. Wait, I feel very inspired at the moment. I want to make something unique for the desk, with my trusty paperclip. Can you guess what it is? What about now? That's right, I'm gonna attempt to make that futuristic looking figure with clay. It kinda looks like a gingerbread man. I don't want the figure to be too thin, otherwise the clay will crack. Alright, I added a base for the figure to stand on, and I'm gonna paint it black. Oi, the paperclip is sticking out of his hand. It looks like he's giving me the finger. Oops, that was not my intention. Now let me add those gold accents. Not sure if this is working. Maybe it'll look better in a clear base. Ah, not bad. I'm gonna coat it with resin so it becomes glossy and more durable. Ah, that actually looks pretty good at a distance. It did get a bit thick, but I'm not complaining. Oh, I forgot his apple. There, the desk is complete. Now all there's left is a sacred timeline. Okay, no, that's not what the timeline looks like in the show, but I wanted to see the timelines in both windows, so that'll do. Alright, here's the Citadel all finished. I love how it turned out. What about you? Do you like what I've done? Let me know down below. Now let me bring He Who Remains home. Ooh, magnificent. I'm glad I added the purplish blue hue to the display. It matches his robe very well. I didn't want it to be black, otherwise it'll lose a lot of its definition. And it'll look strange, like it's unlit, and the figure will stand out like a sore thumb. This is gonna sound silly, but I love the bookshelves. It's always so fun to make fake books, even though I'm not really a book person. But I love that organized yet messy look of the display. It adds so much character to it, that you can tell what kind of person He Who Remains is, just by observing what's in the room. The 3D effect of the windows isn't too bad. It does look like the sacred timeline is somewhere outside the windows. I do wish I could add more depth, but that would take up too much space. The little clay figure turned out quite gloppy, and not the right shape, but I think I captured the texture quite well. Originally, I wasn't sure about the roof. At one point, I wanted to cut out all the windows, but that would compromise the structure of the display. I don't want to risk that, so I went with having the sky printed onto the windows. Technically, they're casting more shadows onto the display, but they kinda also brightens it with their vibrant colors. And I have to say, the shape of the ceiling and the walls does add to that Citadel look to it. Even though he can't really sit, having props on the desk make He Who Remains look less awkward. He can now look like he's interacting with items. And I also want to leave some space for Loki and Sylvie, in case I want to display all three of them together. This display is so fun. There's so much I can do with it, even if He Who Remains is doing a static pose. There are layers of depth to the display, so when the camera pans around, it makes the Citadel look and feel like an actual room. Hey y'all! I have to bring Miss Minutes to the Citadel, to keep He Who Remains company. I wonder if he chats with her when he's bored. The time door looks really nice here too. The orange is a nice contrast against the purple blue. And of course, the two Loki variants. I don't have the updated Loki. I am perfectly fine with this one here. Oh, and now I can also recreate the moment that broke the sacred timeline. I feel like the Sylvie figure is made for this. Alright, let's end this with a photo shoot. I don't think I need to say too much. Let's just admire the Citadel display, and let the photos do all the talking. Oh man, I'm so happy with the display. It is so fun to photograph. The photos look so immersive. Some of these photos look just like how I remembered it in the show. It is only March, but I loved everything I've done so far this year. I feel like I elevated a lot of the underwhelming figures of Phase 4. Do you agree? I hope you enjoyed today's video. Give it a like and subscribe to see more content like this. And as always, stay inspired, and I'll see you next week. I can make it, so can you.